welcome to Awaken the Rebel. I'm your host, Shireen Thor, and I have someone really cool, too cool for me, on the podcast today. You guys excited? I am. Okay, so welcome, Rob Mack.
What's up, Shireen? Wow, I was like looking around the room like, who's here? Must be an amazing guy.
You're so cute.
Because it's me.
And that's actually, for those of you listening, one of my favorite things about Rob. So humble. Gosh, it's like the humility makes you way more lovable. Like, you really nail that, my friend. You
really appreciate you saying that, Shireen. And of course, you know, it takes light to recognize light. And you, my friend, are so incredibly humble. And it's especially special because you're so talented and you're so brilliant and you're so much fun.
Thank you.
So I received that compliment, but it is just a reflection of you.
You're so sweet. I'll take that all day. Fun is my favorite thing. Fun is my jam. Which is interesting because there's been like a confusion. Comedy or life coaching? Who am I? What am I doing? Maybe that's the Gemini.
It is the Gemini. Two sides of you.
Right?
I love it.
So, all right. So for those of you listening, Rob's amazing. I'm going to just brag about you for a little bit. And if I miss anything, feel free to like fill in my holes. Feel free to brag about yourself, you know. Give your humility hat, take it off. Okay. Now we're putting on the super confident, you know, share your impressive stuff hat. So Rob has an Ivy League degree in positive psychology.
Very expensive one. A
very expensive one. You're so damn cute. Which is just so freaking cool. Education, but also positive psychology. Like, really, tell me really fast for the people listening, like, what's really the definition of positive psychology?
It's the science of what makes life worth living.
That's so good.
Yeah. So it's the intersection of happiness and success. So how does happiness lead to success? How does success lead or not lead to happiness? What makes for a happy life? What makes for a successful life?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm so happy you're here because that's just, I feel like it's so typical where let's say we're on the hedonic treadmill, right? And like we're just doing like 9 to 5 rat race. And then we're like, I want to break out of that. And then we become an entrepreneur because we want freedom and we want, you know, no glass ceiling and we want endless opportunities and we want connection and a fulfilling life. But then we end up sort of like sometimes driving ourselves into a different kind of misery. You know, it's different from the 9 to 5. You can't really clock out. There's just a 24/7 thing and you're your own boss. But it can oftentimes still drain from what we were ultimately chasing, which was happiness. So this is why I love having you here because sometimes that's really hard to find the right lane. Like wait, hold up. Like, because this happened to me. I'm confused. I went for entrepreneurship so that I could be happy, free, fulfilled, like put my family first, all the things. And now I'm miserable and tired, burnt out, and depressed.
Totally. Been there, done that.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have you as like our North Star. Like Robbie Mack, baby. He's going to help us really make sure that, you know, based on research of what actually makes people feel happy and thrive and be successful all at the same time. Not one or the other. It's so good.
Yeah, because the challenge and opportunity is not to chase happiness, but to choose happiness. If you're chasing happiness, that's the trap.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't chase happiness, you choose it.
So what if someone right now is like in a miserable 9 to 5 job they hate, right? And they're listening to this podcast because they just want to like become an entrepreneur or have freedom or maybe become an artist that monetizes something, whatever. How would they choose happiness versus chasing it, you know?
Yeah. So it's to start where you are. So I think the challenge and the opportunity is that most of us want to control or change uncontrollable situations or seemingly uncontrollable situations. So we want to go from the 9 to 5 job and suddenly do something entrepreneurial, and yet we've got all this debt and we've got all these responsibilities, right? So that can't always happen right away. So in the meantime, your ability to be happy, believe it or not, is just as good in that 9 to 5 job as it is for an entrepreneur, okay? And so the key to that and the real issue that most people have is they think that happiness exists outside of them in the future. And that clearly is not true. Yeah. Happiness is within you and it exists now or never, essentially, right? So the only thing that really causes unhappiness is a mind that can't shut up. Really. Just can't sit down, shut up, and be still and silent for a while, right? So ultimately the same struggles and challenges that somebody who has a 9 to 5 experience and an entrepreneur experiences too, but they're just sort of expressed in different ways.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. That's interesting. A mind that cannot shut up. So, okay. So if they can shut their mind up.
Yes.
Then what happens?
Yeah. So then you experience perfect peace. I mean, within you is perfect peace, perfect happiness, perfect love. true abundance. Okay?
Yeah.
And you can only, right now, it just sounds like words, right? Unless you have had a taste of that, a glimpse of that, it's just words. But when you practice quieting your mind, tapping in, tuning in, turning on to that perfect peace, happiness, and love that is inside of you, you get a taste of it, and then you realize that everything everybody's been preaching about for thousands of years is actually the reality.
Yeah. It's so good. And like, it sounds so simple. And there's a part of me that's like annoyed about that.
Yeah.
Just keeping it so real.
Totally. I love that about you. You know that I do. You know that I do. Yeah.
Because like, I just know how that is when like you're in your life and it does really feel hard, Like just being, I'm just going to like, I have no filter, whatever. Sorry, Kenny. I love you, husband, but we're just going to let it all hang out.
We love Kenny.
We love Kenny. So Kenny and I are really working on our like marriage and really ultimately creating a new dynamic around the way we relate with money, because money's been like our Achilles heel in our marriage, which I know it is for a lot of people. People always divorce, oftentimes over money.
Yeah.
I'm not unique, but like, I don't know. It's so interesting because there is a piece of like, can you help me with this? Okay. Because I feel like in a vacuum, it's easier maybe by myself to like choose happiness. But then I think sometimes when you add in like a husband or you add in children, you add in these external factors which I guess is kind of the same as a job. So I kind of think I know where you got to go with this.
See?
Like, you don't even need to say anything. It's like already happening. It's so weird.
That's what we call being smart. You're smart. That's all it is.
So like, yeah. So I guess let me just, I guess I kind of know where you might go with it, but I'm going to ask you anyway, just to like hear it. Like, what would you say to a wife or a mom who's like struggling with her mate or her children being sort of a source of energetic drain, or maybe not, maybe feeling difficult, like kids who don't listen, something very simple that just kind of creates stress? What are your thoughts around how to maybe quiet the mind or how they could choose happiness in those scenarios?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I would say that you're absolutely right that like what you see happening in your life, whether it's with your husband or your kids, it's a direct reflection of actually what's going on inside of you, right? So if you've got the kids that aren't listening, in all likelihood, you don't even listen to yourself, right?
Ooh, that was so deep, Rob.
Yeah, there it is. So it's like, and same thing with the husband. It's like, well, we get mad at the husband or the wife because they're not listening, but we don't even listen to ourselves. So how can we expect them to listen to us? And so the first step is to begin listening to what you're thinking and noticing what you're feeling, and to do so from a place of non-judgmental awareness and observation. Okay, you're just noticing it. You're not judging it. You're not trying to change it, delete it, edit it, do anything with it. You're just experiencing it all the way through, and you're doing it without judgment or condemnation. Okay, when you start there, then what you can do is you can do something like a micro-meditation. A micro-meditation is when you simply become aware of the thoughts and feelings you're having without doing anything about them. Okay, and then you bring or invite your focus back to the simple awareness of your breath. Right? And you're just doing it for the joy of it. You're letting all your thoughts go, and you're simply enjoying one breath all the way in, all the way out, as though it's the last breath you'll ever take on earth. And it very well could be. Lots of people, you never know. I mean, we're going to die one day. It could be 5 minutes from now, 5 seconds from now, or 50 years from now.
Right.
In any case, it's really important to take as many conscious breaths as you can without too many thoughts in your mind. The more you practice that and you do it for joy's sake alone, the better you get at it. And then over time, you become very consistent, very effortlessly, which is an automatic thing.
Yeah.
So then you're able to dial into this peace without so much struggle.
That's so cool. So I would imagine that's kind of like being in a flow state.
It is very much a flow state. Look at you,
like
you positive psychology expert.
I learn from the best,
It is
baby.
a flow state. That's the idea, right? Flow state is loss of time consciousness, loss of self-consciousness. You're deeply engaged, absorbed in the present moment.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so good. And it's funny because I feel like I get in a flow state when I play soccer.
Yes.
I'm like not thinking about anything other than this moment, just literally being like in my body and not even really thinking tons, just like being in my muscle memory of like what I need to be doing. And it's very meditative for me, which I'm saying that because I don't meditate.
Yet you do.
Yes, I get that. I do in my ways. Right,
yeah,
exactly.
That soccer is a moving meditation. No question about it for you. That is a moving meditation, soccer. And so that's one of the places that people can start, is just simply do more of the things that put you into a flow state.
I love
easily
that.
and effortlessly.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah, like practical stuff like that. Because I think sometimes, I have like that busy bee. I don't want to say Tasmanian devil because it's a little dramatic. But you know what I mean?
I love the Tasmanian devil, but I love you. And
but
so
just like a little bit of that, like like high energy, like Aries kind of energy. My Venus is in Aries. I love like a fighter. I don't know why all this astrology.
Like a fighter.
Like I like
That's hilarious.
I'm not even that into astrology, but somehow I just keep talking about astrology. Are you into astrology?
Not so much, but I do know my sign.
You're like, please stop bringing it up. It's super weird.
No. I definitely can appreciate it, and I've been actually quite surprised and shocked by how accurate often it is. But I don't like the idea of ever putting my power in something else.
That's great. I love that. Of course you don't. I mean, why would you?
Right.
You wouldn't be Robbie Mack if that were the case.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give our listeners a little bit of positive psychology 101, like the 3-to-1 ratio, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So if I were to give you the Cliff's Notes version of what positive psychology has found, I'd say that first and foremost, success does not lead to happiness. We're very crystal clear about that, okay? That means that objective good health, that means that more money, that means that more kids, that means that more, none of that stuff leads to permanent, lasting, meaningful, abiding happiness, period. And happiness does lead to success, right? So the happier you are, the more money you make. So happy people make about $600,000 to $700,000 more on average over the course of their entire lifetime.
Wow.
They live 6 to 7 years longer. They get married earlier, stay married longer, are happier in their relationships, whether they're married or not. They experience less job burnout. I mean, in all ways, happiness makes your life better.
Right.
Okay. So then the question becomes, well, how can you be happier more consistently, more often, right?
Yeah.
And so positive psychology mostly says it's all about relationships. If you've got positive, supportive relationships in your life, that will lead to an increasingly happy life. I would go further than that. I would go further than the science and say, at the end of the day, it's a quiet mind that ultimately allows you to experience the kind of deep, unconditional, unfettered, sort of boundless, immovable happiness, peace, love, and joy that you're ultimately after. And that nothing except that will ever give you that experience in a consistent way. Even the best of relationships, we all know that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not, other people are not the source of our happiness.
I love that. It's great.
Yeah.
It's so good. So you fascinating enigma of a man.
Sorry, I'm going to move in to this studio just so I can hang out with you and like my ego stroke.
Right? All day. Are you kidding? I just admire you. I just love who you are. I admire who you are. Like when I'm around you, your energy is really good and positive and upbeat and yet so calming. Like I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm in the presence of a sage.
Yeah, but what you really want to say is you feel like you're in the presence of yourself.
Is it just a mirror? I'm like, I just really like myself actually.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, you would never say that.
You're so cute.
I so appreciate you saying that. And it's interesting because I very much feel that way with you, Shireen. I think it's so easy to be full of energy and to be upbeat and to be positive, particularly in your presence of all people.
You're
because
so
you have this really incredible like spirit and this light and this love that you just emanate so consistently and effortlessly. And I just love that about you. And for me, and it's been practice. It's taken practice for me. I mean, I was depressed for decades and I was suicidal and I still have the suicide test marks on my wrist.
Yeah.
Right? Because I couldn't emotionally regulate. I couldn't self-soothe. I wasn't cognitively agile. I mean, I was not able to choose a thought at all. I couldn't choose the thoughts that felt good. I was consistently choosing the thoughts that were painful.
Yeah.
Right? So, this happiness thing is something that we want to practice, and we find that when we practice, we become effortlessly adept at tapping into it anytime we want.
That is honestly, it's like even more fascinating that you have that in your story. I remember going to your website and reading that and going like, holy shit, this guy really is the real deal, because someone who has experienced the desire to not be on the planet anymore and then sort of like clawed and fought his way out of that to become the Rob Mack I'm looking at right now is someone who is 100% sincere and authentic in where you are. Like, yeah, like I could understand why positive psychology has become your life's purpose based on that story. So can you actually like tell us the story?
Yeah, of course. So I feel like I was born unhappy. I know that's not true, but that's the way it felt. My first memories were just being so stressed out and anxious and hating myself to the core, like really to the core. And, I had great parents, a loving family. We struggled like anybody else. We didn't have a whole lot of money. And over time, I did well athletically. I did well academically. And I didn't have a whole lot of friends because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. And over time, this self-loathing and this existential angst continued to grow and grow and grow. And even though I had a fantastic girlfriend, I went to a great college. I graduated from college. I had a great consulting job. I made good money. I had a healthy family. I had no real objective reasons to hate my life and to hate myself. But this existential angst that I was experiencing was really the result of me thinking about all of these things that I was working so hard to achieve and accomplish and acquire, and all these people that I was working so hard to love and get them to love me back, and the thought that they would all of it would be ripped away from me one day, whether that day was today or 70 years from now, didn't matter a whole lot to me, because I knew ultimately they were going to die, I was going to die, everything was going to eventually hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I couldn't process that, couldn't digest that. I just felt like, I'd been thrown onto this planet without a book of how to live, and I was just drowning in it. So I got to a point where I started researching ways to kill myself, and I didn't.
How old were you at that point?
Let's see, when I probably, I'd say 20, 21.
Okay.
Yeah, and I started researching, and I didn't have access to a lot of means. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have and I didn't want to do anything too crazy and dramatic. I didn't want to jump off a bridge. I didn't want to make a big deal of it. And I just wanted to be done. And so eventually, for some reason, I decided I was going to slash my wrist. So I went and got a kitchen knife, and I just dug it into my wrist because I wasn't sure how painful it was going to be.
Yeah.
And, I sort of had a very strange experience where all of a sudden I experienced this sort of inexplicable peace.
Wow.
And bliss that kind of washed over me for no good reason. I mean, my life hadn't changed, but something on the inside felt different. So I was like, I could put off suicide for like an hour. At that time, that's all it was, it's an hour. And then the hour bled into a day and bled into a week. And the whole time I was doing research, and I discovered that a whole lot of people were feeling the same way. And they had actually given it a name. It's called the progress paradox, that as life has gotten better, people felt worse for it.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So just the more research I did, the more I started just applying what I would read, and then I would kind of track it. And that sort of journal that I was creating eventually became Happiness from the Inside Out, the first book I wrote.
Wow.
But yeah, it was really just a selfish intention for me to try and dig myself out of this dark, deep, depressive hole I dug.
Totally. So then, how did you find positive psychology?
Yeah. So at the time, I was working for a consulting firm. I hated my work. I loved the people, but I freaking hated my work. And I eventually decided to go back to business school. And business school was at the University of Miami. So I went back to business school. While I was there, I suddenly was having this epiphany, like, I don't think I want to be in business at all. I like the idea of helping people get through stuff. And I found this program online, University of Penn's Masters in Applied Positive Psychology program. And I thought, this is so interesting. This is exactly what I need to learn about, but also to share with other people.
Yeah.
So at that point, I matriculated into that program and opened my private practice, and I started doing that kind of work. There was a period there where I was doing lots of entertainment-related things, though, which is interesting because as I opened my private practice, some of the folks that I'd met in the entertainment world were in a position where they were wanting to recommend or refer out my services. So it was sort of a perfect storm.
It's perfect.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So freaking perfect.
It's wild. I know.
I love it. I love you being out there really kind of supporting people in understanding like how to be happy. And like, this is going to sound weird, but like you kind of make it sexy too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, you're right, because it's not a particularly, and I'm not saying you're right that I'm making it, but it's not a particularly sexy topic.
Right, exactly.
Right?
It's very like woo-woo or like crunchy granola or like even sort of the stigma around like therapy or coaching. It's like, I don't need that. I'm good. Like,
totally.
So I don't know. I just feel like you're kind of bringing something about you, just how you present, and also like just how interesting you are and all the things, plus the degree like legitimizes things. You're just kind of, there's just something about you that's kind of, I think, going to help bring it to the mainstream. I think we need that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think we do need it more now than ever. We have more unhappy people than ever before in the history of mankind. Since 1950, we have 10 times the depression.
Wow.
10 times. And so as life has gotten better, more technological advances, better healthcare, all that stuff, okay? Despite all that, we have more people with stress, more people that are stressed out, more anxiety disorders, more depression. So it's now is as great a time as any to be happy.
Yes. So do you think that is a result of the progress? What was it called? You said
Progress paradox.
Progress paradox, or do you think that's a result of like cell phones and social media?
I would say that all of that is symptomatic.
Yeah.
And that the root cause is simply a mind that can't quiet itself.
Yeah.
Right? We live in a very fast world, and we're increasingly distracted, and social media taps into that, right? The whole idea is, in some ways, to distract you from the other things you were doing in your life.
Yes.
And so we've become very practiced at being distracted.
Yeah.
And as long as you're practiced at being distracted, you're not practiced at focusing, at concentrating.
Yeah.
And that means ultimately that your mind is never where your body is, so you're never present.
Yeah.
And the only place that happiness lives and exists and can be accessed is right here now in the present moment.
Yeah.
So if you're always practicing being somewhere in the future, somewhere in the past, or in somebody else's life instead of your own, it's impossible to be happy.
Yeah. And this is why I do retreats. This is really why I do retreats, because me being a person who doesn't love to just meditate, I have to do a moving meditation, right? Like I have to, or take me out into the woods, take my cell phone away from me and like, hey, there we are. So like, it's just interesting what you're talking about, and also me kind of being my Tasmanian devil self. Like I think trying to find ways in this like crazy busy life to be able to cultivate that kind of experience. For me, it's only like a 3-day weekend, annually. But the hope for me is that people quiet long enough to hear their soul speak, to be present with themselves, and then choose a direction that will really support their actual higher calling. So.
That's powerful, Shireen. I would agree with you. I love the way you just described it, really eloquent. And you're absolutely right. You sometimes, often, have to remove people from their current environment where there are so many interruptions, uninvited interruptions. Put them out in nature where, nature is perfectly blissful in and of itself. And it's actually a great reflection of the presence that exists within us all. In that space where they can have like an intensive experience with you and all your fantastic teachers, then suddenly they can get a taste of that which always exists within them.
Yes.
And then they can sort of come up with a plan on how to integrate into their daily lives going forward.
Exactly.
So it's just critical. I love the work that you do, Shireen, and I think it's just so important, particularly now.
You're so sweet.
Yeah.
Currently, I only do the annual mom's retreat, but honey, I have been thinking about how I could maybe produce a retreat for you, and you could do a men's leadership retreat.
Wow. I'm all over that.
Maybe that would be like an offline discussion.
Yes, okay. We'll take that offline.
But like ever since I met you, the philosophies were so in alignment. I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I just, in my mind, is like,
I love that. And that's actually one of your countless signature strengths I've noticed, Shireen. You're a very good, solid, strategic thinker.
Thank you.
And it's not, that's, You really are. You're able to strategically think your way through things. And I think that's, that too is an increasingly lost art and skill these days.
You think so?
Yeah, I know so. I do. I talk to those folks every day, all day.
You're like, it's terrible.
Yeah. And the one thing we talk about
Save
is
me.
how can we, Because people are so distracted, and when you become so distracted and you become so caught up in the details of your daily life, you never take time to step back and then think about how to be, first of all, what you're most wanting to optimize your entire life for. Like, what's your life for? Like, you ever think about that? Like, what is your entire life for? Is it just to accumulate stuff, achieve stuff, accomplish stuff that ultimately is going to rust away or fade away or wear out? No, it's not. It's not for that. So people, it's great if you can take time to step back from all that, get clear about what all of this running around and stuff is for, and then reverse engineer for it accordingly. That's what strategic thinking allows you to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sure. I receive that. That feels good. I do love the strategic thinking. It's my favorite.
So you make strategic thinking sexy. Look at that.
Oh, there we go. I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me about like what, this is going to sound weird, but like I kind of want to know, like, obviously I know you work with clients, and I know you do tons of like interviews. Like I know you do the hosting of Good Morning La La Land, and you're doing a new radio show.
Yeah, it's on Dash Radio. It's called Love Soul Sessions.
That is so cool. Yeah. Tell us about that. What is that about?
Yeah, it's four of us. So it's Dr. Aaron, who I also do Good Morning La La Land with, it's Sarah Desjani, and Sarah Delane. And, we basically talk, it's real talk, but it's conscious talk about love, dating, relationships, and just living this crazy, wild, interesting life that we all lead, and how to do that in ways that are increasingly conscious and happy and peaceful and loving. Yeah.
That's so great. I love that you're doing that. And how did you find the right amount of like hosting versus clients? You know what I mean?
I do. Oh my goodness.
Like, because that's an art right there. It's like really, because that's you answering your higher calling. It's like, you know, your purpose is really clearly about to share and serve, and yet there's like so many different ways you could do that. And I feel like you've really found your lane, and I feel like a lot of people listening to this podcast are still figuring out their lane. So it would be just good to hear that.
Wow, I appreciate you saying that, and I have to be completely honest. I calibrate and recalibrate that for that almost every single day.
Really?
Oh, totally. I mean, every single day. There are some days where I'm just like tapped in, tuned in, turned on. I'm like, I could do radio or TV all day right now. Yeah. And there are other days that are like, just take all the mics and throw them in the garbage can, and all the cameras, turn them off. I just want to deal with clients. And there are other days I'm just like, I'm going to sleep all day. And I don't always perfectly honor all of that, of course, right? Because, you know, you got to pay the bills and stuff. Right. So, but one of the things I would say is that, you know, I've always been, not always, but I've been crystal clear since the day I decided not to kill myself, that if I was going to live, I was going to live happily, or I wasn't going to live at all. And from that day forward, I made a commitment that happiness was my, you know, sort of top goal, really the only goal. Yeah. Okay. And that my happiness too is my gift to the world, because I know when I'm happy, I'm better company, I'm easy to get along with, and I'm more creative. I'm at my creative best. So knowing that, I will ultimately choose that which makes me happiest and also allows me to be at my creative best, right? And so usually, you know, that means a number of things. One, it means that I'm going to usually over-index for the people who are asking for my help the most, right? So if they really need it and they're really in tune with their own desire for happiness, I'm going to over-index for that, as opposed to just doing some silly, trivial thing on the side. It's like cool because everybody thinks it's on a special TV show or something. Yeah. Right. But the other thing is, I would say that even deeper than that is that, you know, and it's going to get a little woo-woo, but it's true. It's true. I would say that I in every single moment of my life, even more important than like saying the right things or doing the right things, it's about being the right thing for me. And that ultimately is what you can call it practice in the presence of God, practice in the presence of peace. But in every single moment, my top priority is to think when I need to think, but then to keep that sort of human mind quiet, as quiet as possible, so that I can let something that's so much more brilliant, that's infinitely brilliant, right, and more powerful and more creative and more interesting flow through me, and more helpful flow through me. And you can call that God or source or spirit. But that's my ultimate intention, and that is what ultimately directs and dictates my life.
That's beautiful.
Right? So some days, for no good reason, I'll have 5 clients cancel. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then I'll later discover, oh my gosh, that was precisely what I needed to have happen so that I could serve in this other way. Yeah.
It's so good.
I wonder how you do it, though. I mean, you've got a family.
I'm just a confused monkey. You know, it's so interesting hearing you talk about that, because I feel like just that getting in touch with like what's really the most true for you in your gut and your body, in that intelligence, like the body intelligence versus the mind intelligence. It's like so important. Like even just to bring us back to my dirty laundry in my marriage.
Yes. Love the dirty laundry.
Because honestly, I like sharing it. Like I feel like sometimes that, you know, you see the social media, you see the happiness, and you think what's wrong with me or what's wrong with my marriage. And I feel like, bro, everybody's going through it. Like it's okay. Everyone's going to be okay. So I don't know. It's not really dirty laundry. It's just life, you know? And I feel like maybe that's what I want to make sexy, like sharing for real, you know? Yes. So, you know, Kenny and I have been rejiggering our money stuff and kind of like, honestly, having very explosive fights because this is an old problem we've had for like the last 5, we've been married 5 years, right? So really, like when you get married and you have babies, all of a sudden money becomes more of a thing, because it's like, okay, if the mom is taking care of the kids, is she getting compensated for that? Are we going to then pay for childcare? Like it becomes more like, it's not just all sweet love anymore. Yes, it's right. Like, who's doing what? Are you going to get that diaper or am I? It's not sexy. Right. So anyway, the point is we got in these like little minor tiffs on Sunday. 1, about childcare, who's going to do it and whatever. And 2, about money. And I knew we had couples therapy on Wednesday, so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to blow up his spot. I'm just going to contain that. So for those of you listening, there's something called containing in imago therapy. You can hold it in for a hot second so that you can address it when you've chosen how you want to address it versus just like reacting. So I contained. And then like I was really just kind of going back to what you were saying of like the mind versus the body. My mind wanted to go into like defense, like kind of like F you, here's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And then you just would go down that road for like forever, really. I think that's why people divorce, is because they kind of let their minds take over and they're so busy defending themselves or feeling underappreciated or whatever that it just, that story goes forever, right? But I was like, you know what? What I'm really realizing right now is that we're at an impasse around the way we view the childcare and we view the money. And instead of me freaking out about it, I'm just going to be okay and be patient because I know we're already in couples therapy, so like we're handling it. Mm-hmm. Also, Luke's about to go to school in like 5 weeks. So the childcare issue is about to resolve itself because he'll be in school 5 days a week. So I'll have a lot more time to work and kind of do my thing, you know? So because that's resolving itself, really, it only leaves the money stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll just hold out for 5 weeks until that's resolved. We don't need to fight about that. We'll just keep being at an impasse for 5 more weeks. I can hold it together. And then, you know, we talked about the money thing. And so we were in couples therapy today. And we were about to go down the road of like, let's rehash all this crap. This is why I really chose coaching instead of therapy, honestly. Because I feel like therapy, I love it. It's beautiful. I think it's a really safe space to unearth a lot of stuff and show empathy and compassion for your heart and soul and like for your inner child and lots of things that don't typically get addressed as an adult. But I love coaching because it's so solution oriented. It's like, let's go, dude. Like, let's be happy.
Totally.
What's going to effing make us happy? That's the bottom line. That's what I want to know, you know? So we were about to go down the like therapy route. And I said, you know what? Hold up. I realized on Sunday that we have been at an impasse about these two issues, childcare and money. Childcare is about to resolve itself. Let's just talk about what we want to do about money from here moving forward. And honestly, that didn't really come from my head. That like came from my spirit. That came from my feeling of like, I'm actually really like sick of fighting, you know? I'm sick of like trying to tell my story of like how I should be seen and appreciated. I'm sick of feeling like Kenny doesn't feel appreciated. I really want something else. Like I just want a different experience. I think so many like people who have kids feel this kind of like tug and pull. So, you know, the truth is it's not totally resolved yet, but it felt so good to have a therapy session with him that felt progressive, that felt like a discussion about the future, what would be different from here on out, how we would honor each other. It was just so freaking good.
That's amazing to me. I love that. So was it, what exactly was it? Was it the decision to focus on the present and the future and to be solution oriented? Is that what it was, combined with, well, inspired by this body intelligence you described?
You know what? It was like what you were saying about the, what did you call it? The like micro meditation?
Yes.
It was like you notice the thoughts, but you don't judge them. Almost like you're not engaging with your thoughts. You're just like seeing them. So I think that's what happened on Sunday. I think I saw we could go down a really bad road right now and kind of go back and forth. But I was like, we're at an impasse. Like, what's new? I don't want to. So it was almost like just in that moment, I like was like micro meditating with my husband.
See, you do
know?
it all the time.
Yeah, like I was just kind of like, I'm just going to take a pause. Like I just don't want to do it right now. So, okay, that happened. And then I think it was the acceptance of the impasse. It was like that acceptance, like the not judging it or making it wrong or making it mean that there's something wrong with me and Kenny or all that stuff that we do to ourselves. It was like, okay, we've been at an impasse for 5 fucking years about both of these subjects. That was really hard. Okay. Like, okay. I don't know. It was just like leaving it almost.
Well, you just nailed it. So one of the things I've discovered, and it just highlights the profound point you just made, is that all the power is really in non-resistance. You know, we can call it acceptance, we can call it surrender, but it's not a reluctant sort of acceptance. It's not a reluctant surrender. It's not a negative experience, right? It's like, no, I'm going to simply stand firm in my non-judgment and in my non-resistance and trust that all of the power is there. Like when we talk about, you know, with my executives, we often talk about like how they can become increasingly persuasive and influential, how they can enhance their executive presence.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's when you drop your desire to persuade and influence that you're most persuasive and influential.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the whole challenge is really, one, you know, finding that place of perfect peace inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And then 2, speaking in a way that keeps the other person's mind and heart open to receive what you have to say and apply what you have to say. That's all the work. And it's challenging. It's so challenging because so many of the things there, particularly around money, are so triggering for us.
Yeah.
Right? But that right there, the way in which you handled that and navigated that very sticky, challenging situation, Shireen, is just a testament to your cognitive agility, your emotional regulation, all these things that are hot topics and trends these days, but basically just means choosing the thoughts that feel good and choosing the experiences and feelings that feel good and trusting that those things are going to lead to an increasingly successful and efficient and effective and even efficacious conversation or experience for yourself.
I love that feedback. Positive psychology expert. Bring it all day.
You're the one who actually, applied it all.
Because, and I'm not even lying. Like, it actually is really helpful to hear you say that, because I think sometimes, this is going to sound weird. Sorry to those of you who are listening if I'm sound freaking weird right now. But like, sometimes I know that I have skills that make my marriage better. Like, I know that if I didn't have these skills, we would really spin. And we have spun, like, I'm not perfect, but I know that, like, because of the coaching and because of my ability to strategize or whatever the heck the things are, I do know that, like, we will live a happier life together because of that thing that I bring to the table. 100%. We'll probably be more financially stable because of what Kenny brings to the table. But I know that our emotional health will be, our happiness will be much higher because of what I bring to the table. But I oftentimes don't know why, and I don't know how to, like, quantify it or qualify it or, like, express it or figure it out. I just, like, know it's there. So I think sometimes being a person who's a coach and having, let's just call it, like, intangible skills, I oftentimes discount myself or don't think it's anything, because it's not easy to go like, well, that's what I did. Like, like Kenny works in construction. Like, that's a building he built. Like, that's what he did. He can point at it. He could see it. There's no question about it. Whereas, like, for me, I'm in this, like, esoteric, like, nebulous world where I'm like, did I do anything though? Like, was that helpful? So I just love hearing that. Use cognitive agility, emotional regulation. I'm like, okay, I can get behind that,
Yeah, you make a good point here, which is that, and it's part of the trap of unhappiness, which is that, we only count things that can be counted, and we only measure things that can be measured.
Yeah.
But the truth is that, particularly if you want to be happy, it's your ability to take your eyes off the things that can be counted and can be measured, and to dig into and discover something that is intangible, okay, and then recognize, realize, and celebrate that intangible stuff that leads you to a happier life and to a more successful life.
Right.
And those kinds of skills, the ones you just described, really the emotional intelligence and the emotional awareness, the situational awareness, all that stuff is absolutely critical to being happy and to being successful. In fact, those skills are more they're more directly correlated with success in practically every profession than competence is. So then actually knowing what you're doing, no, it's the social skills.
That's
it's
amazing.
the rapport building, the relationship building, the emotional intelligence. It's way more correlated with success and, of course, with happiness.
Wow.
Yeah, so
it's good to know.
Yeah, so basically you're the ish.
I'll take it.
That's what I came here to say.
And this is an explicit podcast, so you can say the shit, my friend.
There it is. Wow.
Feel free to let it rip.
Leveling up.
Maybe you don't. I mean, maybe you like to keep it PC.
I'm selective, so then when it comes out, people
then
really
you
feel
know.
It. Yeah, they're like, oh man, he's upset now.
He's serious.
He never curses. He just cursed at me.
All right. So for you, someone who basically from the outside looking in totally has it together and is just kicking ass at life and doesn't need a damn thing, how can I support you? What do you need? What makes you feel
Oh my gosh.
good?
Just you being you, Shireen. I mean, you are really, I don't know anyone like you. I've never met anyone like you in my entire life.
Whoa,
And
seriously?
I'm definitely,
oh my God.
yes, of
That's
course.
like such a sweet compliment.
Absolutely. Like you, it's a number of things that you do. I think your flexibility, for one. I mean, how many times have we had to reschedule this because of me? That alone makes you lovable. Are you kidding?
That damn Rob Mack.
Yes, exactly. Like, there's
so
just
cute.
you being you, Shireen. You've got this incredible light and love that you just emanate, and you're so wickedly smart, and both in traditional ways and in sort of emotionally intelligent ways. And, I just love everything about you. So you just being you and you doing what makes you happy, I think is your greatest gift to the world, and especially to me. And I mean that wholeheartedly.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Honey, I will keep doing me.
That's right. So spend that money, girl.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, seriously. Hand it over, Kenny. No, I'm just kidding.
About to make it rain. About to make it rain.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so where can my people find you?
Yep. So you can find me on all social media platforms at Rob Mack, M-A-C-K official. You can also find me on my website at coachrobmack.com. You can find me every morning, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time on all social media platforms, including Apple TV.
Oh, my gosh.
There you go.
So exciting. I love everything you're up to. And I truly love and admire you, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for being here with us, for really educating us on what matters the most to our hearts and souls. I mean, literally, is there anything more important to that than that? And just thank you for spending some time with me, you know.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, I do it for selfish reasons. I just like being here.
I might try to nag you to come back in, but...
Oh, do that. I'm here. I might not leave. I'm kind of liking it here.
I'm just going to keep giving you compliments.
Yes.
Just like, you know, you have sleeping bags and make it real creepy.
Totally. You're into spending money and, you know.
Let's do this.
Yeah. Let's get Kenny's card and we'll all hang out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And for those of you listening, go ahead and subscribe, share it with a friend, give us 5 stars. And if you don't want to do any of those things, don't. Because what's the most important is that you just do you. Just listen to our friend Rob Mack. He knows what's up.
Boom.
All right. I'll catch you at awakenrebel.com. Bye.